anyone at all from Shirley Temple to Amy Semple is equally understood. Go out and try your luck, you may be Donald Duck. Hooray for Hollywood.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening to a Radulich Broadcasting premier podcast, Damn You Hollywood. And I'm your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. And this is a special edition of Damn You Hollywood. It's just me and the misfit and the miscreant himself, the dungeon master, Ronnie Adams. How do you do, sir?
What's going on, my friend? I do well. How do you do?
I'm doing okay. It was a long weekend, but it's over now, and I get the next 2 days off, and I get to kick off my next 2 days off by talking yet another medieval movie with you.
Yeah.
So,
sorry.
It's so funny because I never intended to review The Last Duel, directed by Ridley Scott, starring Adam Driver and Matt Damon. Matt Damon's in the movies. That's for you, Robert, who is not with us tonight. Anyway, I had not intended to do this. Andrew Graham, God bless you, Andrew Graham, from our Canadian office.
Yeah.
When this got announced a year ago, was like, hey, can we review The Last Duel? Which, by the way, just to tell you how things in my mind work, he says The Last Duel, I immediately think Tom Cruise in The Last Samurai. And that is what I thought which came out years ago, by the way.
Yeah.
But he's like The Last Duel, and I'm like, right, The Last Samurai. Let's review it. And I'm like, that's not what he was talking about at all.
What he wants.
No. So this was part of the Fox buyout from Disney. This came over along with all the IP, and they finished wrapping on it. They did all the post production, and they released it in time for Oscar season. And what ended up being a very crowded movie season. Because of the COVID pandemic, everything got pushed into October, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So while this might have stood a better chance, maybe in September or in November when things were less crowded, no one saw this thing. But I digress. So we'll get there a little bit later in the podcast. Andrew wanted to review this. Andrew could not be with us here tonight, as Andrew has other things going on in his world. So we wish him well. But as it turns out, when you found out we were doing this, you were like, well, I'll gladly step in for Andrew.
Sure.
And so here we are, yet another knights and swords and whatnot movie. This is your bag, man. This is becoming our thing.
Man,
between this and the Green Knight.
Yeah, we don't count that one. Sorry, the more I think about that movie, the more pissed off I got that I paid for it.
Well, let's talk about this lovely movie about a rape. What that you insisted I watch? No.
I didn't know.
I thought it was just gonna be knights dueling. I didn't know.
I did. I thought it was gonna be knights and chivalry and
they're chivalrous, all right.
Woof. Woof.
Yeah, indeed, woof.
And okay, so let's talk.
Sure. I'm here for you, sir.
I've got things.
Okay.
As my dog curls up on the couch. I was going to let you go. You do your thing there.
Okay. Well, so anyway, The Last Night, directed by Ridley Scott, it's based on the book. Written based on Last Duel, a true story of trial by combat in medieval France by Eric Jager. As I said, there's Matt Damon, Adam Driver, Jodie Comer, who was actually just in Free Guy, and Ben Affleck, who is Matt Damon's hetero life mate. This debuted at the Venice Film Festival on September 10th of this past year, and then it debuted worldwide on October 15th. And it's broken into 3 parts. There's chapter 1, chapter 2, and chapter 3, and it's told from 3 different perspectives. The same series of events, and then the actual rape itself are told from the perspective of the 2 participants, and then from the perspective of Matt Damon's character, who is the unfortunate survivor's husband, rather. So, real quick, and then we'll jump into the plot and then the review and everything. you didn't know what this was about. You just saw the Last Duel. You saw the trailer with them throwing swords at each other and horses and whatnot. We lost more good horses in this movie.
Man, that was rough.
And so, what made you want to see it?
I
Besides all that,
consider myself a well-read man.
Okay.
I like to consider myself that. I have not read this book. Had I read this book, we would not be in this situation right now.
Oh, is this yet another one that you found yourself in a dark alley? Like, how did I get here and how do I get out?
Yes. One by ignorance.
I'm so looking forward to you reviewing Ghostbusters, just so you can start the review with finally a movie I wanted to see and was glad I saw.
This one by ignorance, and the Green Knight by force, because the director made you go where you didn't want to go in that. Speaking of which, The Last Duel. Sorry, that was a terrible segue. But I've not read this, so I didn't quite know what it was about. I knew there was friendship involved, and friendship that spoils into adversary. Friends go into adversaries, and Ben Affleck was the Baron that was in the midst of it all. He was a Baron, right? Yeah, in the midst of it all. I said, this is interesting. And the little bit I saw, I guess I didn't really pay that much attention to it. I was just like, okay, great. I enjoy period movies like this, Braveheart, even though with all of its inaccuracies and everything, it's still close to my heart.
Braveheart's great, but we still lost a lot of good horses that day.
Yeah, we lost a lot of good horses that day as well. Oof. And that one dude that got shot in the butt cheek with an arrow.
Well, you shouldn't lift up your kilt and moon the opposing army.
There you go. There it is. So, but when they put that blue face paint on, weird things happened.
Boy, if I had a nickel every time I put blue face paint on, and weird things happened. Anyway,
fun fact: that is a psychedelic drug that they used to spread on their faces.
That makes sense.
So when I went to see it,
Ronnie froze. All right. So, Ronnie. Oh, there you are.
Sorry, we dropped out, didn't we?
Yeah, you froze for a moment.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. It necessarily wasn't a slow burn. But it had its slow moments. But it still it met everything with, I guess you could say, it compensated. Well, your action scenes where Damon would go off to war and win for his king and country and baron and all this other stuff, and there was a lot of what I felt was not character development but character explanation. Yeah. You saw each one from their own eyes.
Sorry, let's go ahead and normally we just read through the entire plot synopsis and then we have a back and forth discussion. People have heard Damn You Hollywood before. You know how this goes. Because of the way this is broken up and because it's because of that, it's a very long synopsis. We're going to stop and talk about each section. Okay. So the whole thing begins in 1386. Marguerite de Carrouges claims to have been raped by her husband's best friend and squire, Jacques Le Gris. Her husband, Jean de Carrouges, challenges him to trial by combat, the last legally sanctioned duel in France's history. The events leading up to the duel are divided into 3 chapters, reflecting the perspectives of de Carrouges, Le Gris, and Marguerite, respectively. All right, so chapter 1. De Carrouges is a soldier known for his fiery temper and combat prowess and the occasional terrible decision. Serving at Limoges in the Caroline War. Sweet Caroline. Ba, ba, ba. Alongside the squire Le Gris. When Count Pierre Alençon is named de Carrouges' overlord by his cousin King Charles VI, both de Carrouges and Le Gris swear their fealty to him. Le Gris then visits de Carrouges and informs him that de Alençon has ordered all of his new vassals to pay their war levies. De Carrouges explains he lacks the funds to pay, and Le Gris agrees to ask de Alençon, who has come to trust him as a confidant and advisor for leniency. To restore his finances, de Carrouges marries Marguerite de Thimonville.
Dude, stop.
Thibouville, receiving a large dowry from her father that includes valuable estates. However, he learns that one particularly desirable piece of land has already been seized by Ben Affleck.
Yeah, there you go.
And given to Le Gris. When de Carrouges sues for the land to be given to him, the king tosses out the lawsuit. The count retaliates by appointing Le Gris to the captaincy of a fort that de Carrouges' family had held for generations. De Carrouges is furious and suspects Le Gris has turned Ben Affleck against him. While campaigning in Scotland, he is knighted for bravery, but returned home to be told by his wife that Le Gris raped her while she was alone in their home. Knowing that Ben Affleck protects Le Gris, Carrouges resolves to challenge him to a duel. All right. So this whole setup here, where it's told from 3 different perspectives, I think was an interesting idea. I'm going to tell you right off the bat, and again, I don't want to get too far ahead because we need to still read the two other parts of the book of the movie. But I don't love the execution of this structure.
I get it.
The perspectives are too similar. Like, you kind of get things from Adam Driver's point of view when his part's up, and certainly like Matt Damon's perspective, who you see first.
Yes.
Like you're definitely made to sympathize with him at first.
He's a loving husband in this.
But then you hear Adam Driver's point of view, and it's like, okay, I get it. By the time you get to Marguerite, I'm like, I have already seen way too much of this.
Yeah.
And they tried and I'll let you weigh in on this in just a second. But they tried to differentiate the 3 perspectives enough, and the same events being told from 3 different perspectives enough that it wasn't like completely boring. And certainly the things that happened in the movie to me were not necessarily boring. I mean, boring can be a very subjective thing. But I did find that by the 3rd time they went through the same sequence of events, even told differently, I was like, I just want him to get to the duel at this point.
Yeah. Now,
this may have needed another pass through editing.
Little one. 2.5 hours long.
Mm-hmm.
Was it 2.5? Yeah, it was like 150 some minutes. So the first one, you are made to sympathize with Matt Damon's character. You see him as a very loving and very doting husband,
right?
Who wants nothing but the best for his wife, who is compassionate and passionate about her, with her, and passionate about her, compassionate with her. Still a stern man, still a strong man, still a warrior, but has a soft touch when it comes to her. And he has a soft spot in his heart for her.
I think they do reveal in the beginning, even from his perspective, he messed up Limoges, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So he is made to pay his entire fortune in taxes.
Right.
Correct. And now to get that money back, to redo his get his finances back, he has to go to more battles, more wars. He gets sent off,
right,
and then knighted, and instead of celebrating this and living his life with his wife on the tract of land that he wanted, he gets screwed over by his best buddy, who decides to. Yeah, go ahead.
It's an interesting story because essentially, from his point of view,
Adam Driver gets dicked over.
Well, Adam Driver takes everything that he has.
Yeah.
Like, from Matt Damon's perspective, he has been put upon and abused by his one-time friend who up until the point where he assaults his wife, Adam Driver had a lot of patience. Yeah. Like, when you see his perspective, which we'll talk about in a minute, you come to realize that Matt Damon's character is a douchebag.
They're both douchebags.
Well, one's a rapist. But before he was a rapist, he wasn't as much of a douchebag as Matt Damon was.
Well, in my mind, they are one and the same person.
Okay.
Because they're both squires. They're both working on the same period. I think they're one and the same. Now, would Matt Damon's character do the same thing that Adam Driver's character would? I don't know. But what we see is jealousy from both, talking from both, and coveting what both have.
Yeah.
Matt Damon covets the friendship and the wealth that he gets from being with the Baron.
I feel like Adam Driver, from his point of view, he didn't necessarily covet what Matt Damon wanted up until the point where they have their reconciliation at Adam Driver's, whatever that was.
And he coveted his neighbor's wife.
And that's when Adam Driver gets the hots for Marguerite, and things go downhill. But up until that point, Matt Damon lost his fortunes and lost his land and lost things to Adam Driver's character. One, because Ben Affleck favored him in the first. Like, if anyone's like another douchebag in this movie, it's Ben Affleck's character.
That's
Adam
a
Driver's,
given.
So I don't know if this might sound familiar to you, but imagine there's a guy who's caught between two friends who don't like each other. You know, maybe they don't want to record podcasts with each other.
I've been there.
So you know, like you're friends with both sides.
See what you did there, sir.
And one friend's like, and the other friend's like, and you're just kind of caught in the middle. You're like, don't fight, girls. You're both pretty. That's kind of where Adam Driver is between Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. And Ben Affleck, I think, recognizes Matt Damon's talent as a soldier, but that's not even like it. It's not like he was without fault there either. There's the one scene where they're like, we were told hold the bridge, and Matt Damon's like, no, charge forward, and they lose the battle anyway because of his hastiness, if I remember correctly. And Ben Affleck's like pissed at him about it,
and he admits that he messed up.
Right.
Here's what I'm thinking about Adam Driver. Why I think they're one and the same. I think that Adam Driver flaunted what he was getting in front of Matt Damon's face just a bit. Because, yes, he did cost him that battle. And this is where you could have been, sir, but you're not because you messed up. And because you screwed up, I get this stuff. And it goes down the line that he gets all this stuff, and I don't think he flaunted up until... Like, I think he wasn't necessarily a bad friend, but like the whole point of it behind it, you know, where when Ben Affleck gives Driver the land, he's like, he even says, but isn't this the land that's supposed to go to Damon in the dowry? He goes, doesn't matter, it's mine, I'm giving it to you.
Yeah, that becomes a bone of contention. That's why it's hard to talk about this movie in parts, because there's a whole section that's just dedicated to, like, he's suing us for land that was never his. Personally,
well, it would have been, but they took it by force. You know what I mean? And at what point, though, are you no longer
debt collection?
Yeah, but at what point? Well, it wasn't. Adam Driver wanted it. They wanted that part. I'm implying that
it was implied in the movie that Adam Driver wanted it because it was going to be Matt Damon's, but that seems to be your contention.
I think that's where I think he had that little seed of contention in there of, okay, so you got us all boned in this battle by making a bad decision. This land is mine now. Because at what point do you stop being a bro and say, you know, and not say, hey man, you know, that land that was supposed to be in your dowry, I'm getting it. Let's talk about this. What do you want to do? Before
we wrap up the Matt Damon section, because we got to move on to Adam Driver. The one thing I thought was funny about Matt Damon's perspective is how he thought, and this is very true. You know, I think of like a lot of husbands. They're just like, they see themselves as being good husbands, and you know, as you use the word doting on the wife and everything. And then it's so funny because then you get to Marguerite's perspective and it's completely turned on its head. And he comes across as oafish, but like the cognitive dissonance that he displays, like,
yes.
And it's hard because this is also, again, you know, the 1300s.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
Which is, I was so funny as I was watching this, and then I'll read the next section. As I was watching, I was thinking about you, and I was thinking about Cinderella and how nice it was to, despite the fact that this is a very Me Too movie and very much like, hey, there's something going on in the culture right now that this time period, which, yeah,
I didn't think about that.
Yeah, this is even though that this takes place in the 1300s.
Dang it!
I can see why this got greenlit. This is a very Me Too movie.
I didn't think about that.
Oh, did I ruin it for you even more?
No. It just makes me think more.
Well, all right. Well, you kick the dog. I'm gonna.
Well, here's a froghemoth. Think about that.
All right. So this is the Adam Driver section. Le Gris, a squire who rose from humble beginnings and briefly studied to become a monk, wins the trust of Ben Affleck by using his knowledge of math to fix the Count's finances by collecting the debts owed to him by the vassals, earning a place at his side. By the way, I'm watching that sequence where he's going around collecting debts and just beating the shit out of people. I'm like, oh, that's where the mafia got it from. Got it. Okay, cool. Glad that was connected for me.
Yeah.
He attempts to use his new position to help de Carrouges, but when Ben Affleck showers Le Gris with gifts, de Carrouges becomes envious and openly mocks Le Gris, becoming a laughingstock among Ben Affleck's court for his childish outburst. Yeah, that was a cringy scene. Upon seeing Marguerite for the first time, Le Gris is attracted to her and believes that she does not fully love her husband, who is illiterate, and sees her only as a means for him to acquire an heir. Marguerite admits to her friends that Le Gris is good-looking, but insists that her husband does not trust him. While de Carrouges is away, his mother takes the servants to help with errands that day, leaving Marguerite alone, which she was not supposed to do. A man knocks on the door, claiming his horse has thrown a shoe, and pleads with her to let him come in while waiting. She allows the man in, who is followed quickly by Le Gris, who tells Marguerite he loves her. She insists that she is married and orders them to leave. Instead, Le Gris tells the other man to leave while he chases Marguerite up to her bedchamber. Le Gris then rapes her in his mind, despite her protests. He believes that Marguerite must love him as well, so he had committed no crime. Before leaving, he threatens her not to tell her husband or else she will regret it. When de Carrouges returns, he notes the odd way his wife is behaving, and she tells him what happened. Then, because the rape is not only against his wife, but an affront to him, he determines to press his case against Le Gris. Count Ben Affleck ensures that no charges can be brought against his favorite, prompting de Carrouges to go before the king and request a duel. Le Gris, eager to save his honor, accepts. Okay, so let's just get right into it. The rape scene, obviously brutal and horrifying, especially when you see it from Marguerite's perspective. It's it's uncomfortable to watch to begin with, but then when you see what really happened, or at least in the mind of Marguerite, it's so much worse. But what, and I almost hesitate to say this, and then I'll shut up. I almost hesitate to say this because of the word I'm going to use. But the scene between Ben Affleck and Adam Driver when they're discussing it, and he goes like, "Well, she's a lady. Of course she protested. She put up the necessary protest, but clearly she wanted it." I laughed, but not because like I didn't feel sympathy towards Marguerite. That was clearly written in there by people who feel like that's the kind of thing guys think and say. Yeah. That is both a reflection of the time, I think, but also a reflection of modern times, as if guys have not changed at all,
right,
in 700 years.
Okay, so I get it. There are guys like this,
sure,
and this power hungry guy, and he's power hungry, no matter how you look at it.
Mm-hmm.
He's going around collecting all these debts, sees this woman that he can't have, and because he can't have her, falls in love with her, or so he thinks. And because she's a lady, she wants it.
Yeah.
Even though she says no, she's playing hard to get.
She can't just throw herself on the she can't just throw herself on the bed, spread eagle, and be like, "Come and get it, big boy." She has, she has to maintain her dignity.
But even in his point of view, and this is what I found, I don't want to say interesting, but this is what stuck out to me. Even from his point of view, after the assault happens, and she's left crying,
right?
In both views, she is distraught, more distraught in one than the other, more distraught in her view. He turns and looks at her, and even though in his own words she wanted it, he looks at her and thinks to say, "Oh, by the way, don't tell anybody that this happened, because it could be very bad for you." if she was welcoming an affair, a sexual encounter with this man, why would she tell anybody anyway?
Right.
So in my mind, I'm sitting here thinking, even then, even though he thinks he's right and she wanted it, he knows he's wrong, because he has to reiterate, don't tell anybody, or you could be looked at. I forget. He implies that not implies, but he pretty much says out loud that,
well, you're a woman.
Your husband's going to kill you.
Yeah,
your husband will kill you. Nobody will believe you. You will be labeled a whore or whatever. You know, but he said your husband will kill you and nobody will believe you.
Right.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, this makes, and I think that's also where my complete hatred of that character kicked in.
Yeah, like I said before, I think when you compare, because Matt Damon, going back to this, he comes across, even from his point of view, as really oafish, and and in the description of the plot description, he's described as childish, and that's all very true.
Yeah.
He seems to see Marguerite as one of his properties and not as a person. But again, how much of that reflects the actual time that they were in? And that was one of the things I actually wanted to compliment the movie for, is they really did manage to work in a lot of modern themes without going full Cinderella, and have it be. That's what I was thinking about you while I was watching this. I was like, oh, finally a movie that at least appropriately represents the time it's being, it's talking about, as opposed to Cinderella, where it was like, I want to open up a dress shop. Okay, sure.
Yeah, that was just shut up.
But going back to this, it's like, that's what I mean. When you see it from Matt Damon's point of view, I still have sympathy for Adam Driver. He still doesn't come across nearly as negative as he does in his own perspective, because up to a point, like, you see him as a cad, he's sleeping with all these different women, and he's clearly taking advantage of the fact that Ben Affleck favors him, which is all fine. There's nothing wrong with any of that. And I don't necessarily see him as a bad guy until the rape happens. And then he's like, look, for your own sake. Like, I get what you're saying. I think on some level he knew he did a bad thing, but then again, that cognitive dissonance rears its head. And it's like, it's only a bad thing because we don't want this nutcase to get all out of hand. He's already embarrassed himself at least 2 or 3 times. And of course that makes him seem like a scumbag. The other thing I want to note is, what's the actress's name? The woman who plays Marguerite, Jodie Comer. She's the best part of this movie. Her performance is fantastic. Her performance
is outstanding. Yeah.
And having been, I think I've talked about, I used to be an extra in Hollywood, and they'll do several takes on the same thing just to get it from different angles and stuff like that. And that's assuming you get it right every single time. Sometimes you got to redo stuff because people drop a line, or their blocking is off, or whatever. You imagine how many takes it took to get the different perspectives without having to do multiple takes, And I bring that up because look at how there's a great way that she runs up the stairs from his perspective, where she's kind of doing like backwards. Chase me, come on,
come backwards,
chase me.
A back pedal.
Yeah.
And looking behind her and all this other stuff.
Right. When you see it from her perspective, she's just running in sheer terror.
Yes. She not looking behind her, running up the stairs, trying to shut the door behind her.
And all the credit in the world to Jodie Comer for being able to put on that kind of physical performance.
Absolutely.
And find the nuances in just running upstairs. Yeah. Because that was one of the few times I was really interested in seeing the same scene twice.
Yeah. I was right there with you. I noticed that as well. And it's just it shows the different perspectives of what's going on in each person's mind. Something as simple as that. He sees it as a playful gesture of come get me, and she's just flat out, no, I need to get away from you.
So here's another problem I have with this movie. We can talk about this now because we've talked about the 2 different male perspectives on this thing. As I keep saying, Matt Damon, through all 3 perspectives, comes across to one level or another as an idiot douchebag. Adam Driver is okay in my opinion. You seem to see more negativity in him than I do, until the rape scene. At which point, he's a horrible rapist. And
Absolutely.
now your two male leads, like you want to see them both die.
Yeah, Matt Damon becomes a very unssympathetic, soft reset, unsympathetic character when you see it from her perspective. Very cold, very distant, and then she tells him about the assault, about the rape, and he says, "Okay, well, get in bed anyway. I'm not going to let him be the last man to have you."
Yeah, that was really rough. That was uncomfortable.
What the crap? I was so uncomfortable. I was shifting around in my seat, looking down at my feet. I was there by myself. And I was just like, man, I am so glad I didn't ask anybody to come see this with me.
Yeah, this is not a good date movie.
No.
My wife who likes Downton Abbey and Outlander. No, she didn't like Outlander. She gave up on that show. Too much ass sex from what I understand. But
too much what?
But she liked Rain on the CW. So she likes all these shows that The Crown, that talk about the royal family in England, fiction or otherwise.
Yeah.
So she likes all that stuff. So she was actually when we went to see The Eyes of Tammy Faye, we saw the trailer for The Last Duel, and she's like, "Oh, we should go see this together because I like this kind of thing." And I'm like, Ben Affleck and Adam Driver are going to hit each other in the face with axes. You couldn't get through the Dark Side of the Ring episode on XPW. Or FMW for that matter. You're not going to do well with this. He's like, no, I like this sort of thing. I'm like, no, like you like medieval, you don't like blood, and that's what this movie's going to be. So I left her at home,
and it was much worse than blood.
Yeah, to your point, I almost took my wife on a date to see this movie until both of us thought better of it.
I'm so glad.
Yeah. So yeah, I was also alone in the theater. Just tired once again and hoping it would end quickly.
Yeah. And okay, so we've gone through each perspective.
Can we
talk about this fight scene? I thought we went through her.
No, let me do that real quick. So Marguerite. So Marguerite enters a marriage with de Carrouges and quickly sets about helping him restore his neglected estate. Unfortunately, their marriage is soon strained by her failure to become pregnant. When de Carrouges leaves Scotland, he orders her not to leave the castle, not to let anyone inside. Le Gris shows up with a friend who blah blah yakety schmackety, same thing, chases her up the stairs and rapes her. When de Carrouges returns, he is enraged and forces Marguerite to sleep with him immediately, so that her last partner was not Le Gris. Marguerite soon becomes pregnant, and de Carrouges' mother warns her against bringing Le Gris to trial, revealing that she was also raped when she was young, and argues that what Le Gris did is no different. Again, and I was thinking about the plane ride from hell episode of Dark Side of the Ring, where they're like, Terry, don't sell it, Terry, don't sell it, Terry, don't sell it.
Yes.
It's like, I wonder why women are mad.
Right.
Like this is the 1300s, and it's not that much different from what women are told and sort of groomed to believe and think now.
When she said this happened to me too, but it's just part of who we are,
right?
Kind of a deal.
Like women get raped. It's what happens. Like
in the hair,
get some thicker skin,
grabbing it, pulling it, arm on the seat, elbow on the arm of the chair, and audibly going, "What in God's name is this movie?"
It's a multi-layered line because it also talks to how women sometimes can be the least sympathetic towards other women.
Yeah.
When they are the victims of molestation and assault.
Right.
In harassment. I think about modern times and it's like, oh, he made me blow him to get a part in the movie. Great. Who hasn't blown Harvey Weinstein to get a part in a movie? It's like
I haven't
yet.
Whoa.
But I mean, like other women are like that, can be like that. They're just like, I don't feel sorry for you. You don't like it, don't you don't like it, don't be an actress in Hollywood.
Right.
Just not the right attitude to have. But I think generational abuse in women produces a lot of hostility and resentment. And come on, it's your turn to take it in the ass from the entire male gender. It's like everyone gets a turn. You're not special. And it's like women actively working against the betterment of women in society because they don't want to be the last generation to have that shit happen to them.
Right.
So
it's just,
that's what that line spoke to for
Matt
me.
Damon said it. I don't want him to be the last person to have you.
Right.
I mean, like that just says it. I don't want this to be the last generation to have put up with this. I don't want me to be the only person to have experienced this pain. Does every woman think that? No, but there are women like that, and there are men that don't give a crap either. There are things,
So to conclude, at Le Gris' trial, the judges interrogate Marguerite harshly, who remains resolute that she is telling the truth. Although it is rare now, Charles VI decides that a duel is necessary to settle the dispute, but Marguerite is warned that she will be tortured and burned alive, like you do, if her husband loses, which she had not known when she made the crime public. Marguerite gives birth to her son days before the duel is set to take place. I gotta talk I want to finish this so that we can just talk about the movie. But the trial scene cracked me up because, again, I'm sure people thought it at the time, but that line about, well, if you finished, if you orgasmed,
it wasn't rape. It's just science.
You clearly enjoyed it, and if you enjoyed it, it's not rape. And it's like,
if you did orgasm, it's not rape. It's science.
That's just science. And there, look, I could make an argument for a lot of the lines in this movie being reflective of how they think people thought at the time. Then there's lines like that, like, no. You clearly put that in there as an editorial on people's behavior and thoughts today. That's,
oh my gosh.
They may have thought that back then, but and then someone may have actually said it, but that line was clearly written for that reason.
Like, I don't know what they thought of that stuff back then. I haven't done the research. Don't want to do the research. Uncomfortable subject. But what constituted as rape in the Middle Ages? Now I'm on a list. But thanks, Google. But it's with as medieval as science was back in the medieval times, that could have very well been the thought process of it. If you did not climax, it was rape. If you did climax, it was not rape because you enjoyed it.
Right.
And then, but the whole point where they go, it's just science. I was like throwing up the X in the middle of the ring going, nope, heavy-handed. There has been an injury in this match. We need to call it.
I was thinking about, in all seriousness, though, I was also thinking about, women who, I think, again, going back to like Terry Runnels. And if you're just a movie person, you don't know any wrestling, there's a woman who used to be a wrestling manager. She was the manager for, if you know the character Goldust, and she was talking about how she would be sexually harassed all the time by the wrestlers, and there being a culture of acceptance about it, and and a culture of telling women to not, when they say don't sell it, telling women like don't talk about it, don't react to it. It's like a child misbehaving, for attention. Like the more attention you give it, the worse it gets. Not to mention, if you're a rabble rouser, and this is more to the point, so many women for generations were told don't speak up about harassment in the work or school or whatever, because the squeaky wheel can be removed.
Right.
I know the squeaky wheel gets the most oil, but the squeaky wheel can also be taken off the car and thrown into the ditch. You too can be replaced. So, when I was thinking about that with like, how that works within the confines of the script, but also as a metaphor for real life with Marguerite, where look at how she's treated at that trial. Yeah. Like she goes ahead and says, this man committed, felonious sexual assault. Yeah, but you're a whore.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, and if you look at history, that women were treated less than, as less than human. They were property more than they were a partner. Right. And, obviously that's not supposed to be
black
that way.
People in America get the right to vote before women.
Women didn't get to vote until 1920 something.
Yeah.
I think.
Right.
So maybe.
Yeah. It's just like, but that's the point you're driving at. It's like, some of the worst treatment towards that minorities in history is still sometimes better than how we've treated women.
Yeah, 1920 actually. And then
So
there's no good way to Google this.
don't worry about it. My only point in bringing that up is, the film talks to, the idea of how women were treated in days of antiquity, but how some of those things still remain part of the culture today, and we're actively butting up against it now. I mean, it's all over TikTok. Have you seen some of these things?
Yeah.
My God,
Oh,
the week of the Texas fucking abortion ban. Yikes.
Oh gosh. I stayed off of TikTok for a very, very long time.
Yeah, suddenly everyone went from yelling about COVID and not getting vaccinated to yelling about the Texas abortion ban. All right, let me finish this up here. The duel begins with de Carrouges and Le Gris jousting until both men lose their mounts and then fight hand to hand. De Carrouges is stabbed in the thigh, but eventually manages to pin down Le Gris. He demands that Le Gris confess or face eternal damnation, but Le Gris refuses and once more claims his innocence. De Carrouges stabs him through the mouth, killing him. No longer a prisoner, Marguerite is unchained and allowed to go to her husband as Le Gris' body is stripped naked and taken away to be strung up for public display. De Carrouges leaves on horseback and basks in the glory of his victory as Marguerite follows quietly behind. A textual epilogue reveals that de Carrouges died fighting in the Crusades a few years later, while Marguerite continued managing his estate, living in peace for the remaining 30 years of her life and never marrying again. Because really, why would you?
Yeah, I mean...
All right, so I've been talking a lot. What did you think overall, especially of the? I know you wanted to talk about the duel, so let's focus on that.
The duel is one of the best medieval fight scenes I've seen in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, completely brutal. The fight scenes you see in like Lord of the Rings and even down to Game of Thrones, where they flourish and spin and flip their sword around and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Not realistic.
Surf on an elephant.
Yeah, that part is. Seen it happen, but all the I mean, I've watched the techniques. It's enjoyable to watch. I love it. Don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
The whole first fight scene in the Witcher series, where he's flipping the sword around and stabbing people in the neck and all this stuff. It's wonderful. I mean, it's so cool to watch. But when you watch this one, it is very much just a long sword. Back then was meant to cut limbs off.
Yeah.
And and disembowel, and the way he grabbed a blade with his gauntlet hand, the gauntlet on his hand to fight with it and jab and smack and all this other stuff. It was just a brutal fighting style.
Mm-hmm.
And they really brought this into this movie. Now, I've always thought jousting was cool, but stupid. It is. I mean, you just get two big sticks and ride at each other.
Okay, but isn't jousting like taken from the actual like cavalry riding? Where people are on mounted horseback, and they're charging into an army with not spears, but
with pikes and everything else.
Yeah.
Yes. Once you meet, you're either knocked off your horse and you get your sword and go, or you're dead.
I'm just saying, like it comes from the actual the actual tools they use in war,
right? But they were one use. These guys are breaking them on each other and then grabbing another one and going for round 2 and 3 and 4. That's just why I think jousting's dumb.
Okay.
But they eventually got into where they had to go hand to hand with axe and sword and shield and dagger. And, just the end where he puts the blade in his mouth and knees the back of his head under the blade and ends the whole fight made me physically go, oh, God. Like that in the middle of the theater. And it was amazing because everybody joined with me.
My observation of the duel was like, this wasn't in any way pretty or stylized.
No, not at all.
Like they were doing things like hitting each other in the back, and then when you weren't looking, and like, when you look at say Darth Vader, or even better, like what do you call it? Darth Maul, and Qui-Gon and Ben Kenobi. How
spinning
pretty
and the flipping,
right? It's like a Young Bucks match.
Yeah, super kick party.
Right. where this is very much like a Luthez wrestling match where
Yes.
you know these guys are really trying to kill each other, and it shows. And in Ridley Scott's direction style in the duel was very much of the don't make it look like you're cooperating. Try to murder each other, and like it's always like the same thing. Like I think like Rocky V. He he might not have been able to beat Tony Morrison in the ring, but in a street fight, he's fucking like elbowing him in the eye.
Just messed him up.
Yeah,
well, it's the difference between a Muhammad Ali match, float like a butterfly, fly, sting like a bee, to Mike Tyson. I'm going to eat your face
and your children,
Yeah, I'm going to eat his children.
Mm-hmm.
What the heck, man? And you believed he was going to do it because
right?
he was a little bit crazy. And it was between Muhammad Ali knew how to put on a good fight and float around, and he still won and everything else. He hit hard, he moved fast, and all this other stuff. Mike Tyson just went in to crush your face in and won in 30 seconds.
Sure.
And that's the difference in these other movies. In this movie, this was very much like a Mike Tyson fight. They were doing anything to win, and they were going to win at all costs. Now, what I saw in this, and the metaphor that I got from this, was that Matt Damon got stabbed in the leg and was just pouring blood. You thought he was going to lose. And if he lost, it means he was guilty of lying. And he turns around, he beats the piss out of Adam Driver, gets him down, runs a knife through the back of his head, kills him. And then he stands up, half dead, and he wins.
Yeah.
Which tells me that the way they thought, if you win, God is on your side and you're not guilty. But how not guilty is he?
Right. I can't remember if it was in the movie or not, or if it was just in the trailer. But there's a great exchange between Jodie Comer and Matt Damon where he's like, I'm doing this for you. She's like, you're doing this for yourself.
Yeah.
And at the end, like, he's like a professional wrestler. He's got his hands in the air, he was doing like this. I'm not just kidding.
It's almost like you see the reality come out at the end of the fight.
It very much was about him.
Adam Driver was guilty.
Right.
Matt Damon's still pretty much a dick, but he won.
Right. And so it's like, and it's not like I have killed this man for the honor to save the honor and integrity of my wife. I killed this man because I fucking hate him.
I killed this man because he dishonored me and my possessions, including my wife.
Right. And she knows it too. She's like,
that's why she's following him 5 steps behind.
Well, it's funny because, like, in her mind, she's like, no. A grave injustice was committed. Are we not a modern nation of laws? Are we not France? Are we not peak civilization for this time period? She's like, and someone broke the law, and he needs to be punished.
Yeah, and
that's all she's after. She's like, it was funny. I don't know if you watch Impeachment on FX, but the Paula Jones character, quote unquote, in the show, when they at least as far as the show goes, who knows what happened in real life, but she's like, I just want Bill Clinton to apologize to me. He shouldn't have tried to kiss me in a closet, And there's all this like other stuff that gets thrown in there, but all they ever have Paula Jones saying is, I just wanted an apology, and that seems to be like Marguerite's like motivation here. It's like, I don't deserve, no woman does, to be raped, and he should be punished for it. And then by the end of this, and this is the point that I'm getting to, it's so not about her.
No,
this was totally about Matt Damon excising his hatred of his friend who he feels got the largesse and the better of him at every turn, and even raping his wife. It was like, this guy gets me every time I turn around. He's always taking something from me, and then he rapes my wife, and it's like, can't I have anything without
get in bed,
dick in it?
He'll not be the last to have you.
Right.
That said it all right there.
Right. And it's like, I think, the different perspectives play around with the idea of whether or not Marguerite really loved him, and what is love in the 1300s, when it's tied to property and all of that.
It was security, it was property, it was wealth.
But I think the way that she's portrayed is that she let herself believe that there was some semblance of affection between the two of them.
Yeah.
Until the very end of the movie when she suddenly realizes this man doesn't love me.
Yeah.
He just loves my doggy style. No, he just loves my large tracts of land.
Huge tracts of land.
I just want to sing. No, none of that.
And then he beats Adam Driver. He does his Triple H water spit in the air.
Yeah, right.
And everything. They walk out, and then the Jawas come out and strip Adam Driver clean and haul him off, Peter hanging out in the wind, and hang him upside down.
Singing ding 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 ding.
I mean, it's just like they strip him naked and they take his stuff, and they're like,
Right.
hey, your Johnson's hanging out. Let's show everybody and hang you up by your feet. And like that one caught me off guard. I was like, well, not only do we have to put up with, the uncomfortable rape scene, there's Adam Driver's dick.
Every time you suggest we see a movie, Ronnie,
someone's Johnson's hanging out.
Someone's dick is hanging out. I don't know.
Sorry.
I don't mean to kink shame, but you've got weird fetishes.
I know. No, don't you put that on me.
So, if Paul Rudd pulls his dick out in Ghostbusters, we're through.
If Paul Rudd pulls his member out in Ghostbusters, something went wrong somewhere.
Something has gone wrong in editing. Oh no, you've locked the wrong reel. All right, so let's wrap this up, and then we can move on to the last two segments here and close out for the night. I didn't hate this movie. I think it looks. I think in terms of the brutality, what Ridley Scott was going for, and in capturing the gritty realism of medieval France, I think it succeeds there. I think the performances are really, really great. I think the movie has a nice, authentic look. I mean, who knows what the 1300s really looked like, but I think they went out of their way to take you to a place that seemed very real and very, you could physically touch it. It seemed like that's what it would have been like back then. It isn't like it was like Guy Ritchie's Robin Hood where he's using a bow and arrow like a machine gun.
Oh my!
Yeah, I think that
I
was Guy
hated that
Ritchie.
movie. I hated that movie.
Anyway, the one thing I didn't like about it, and then I'll give you the last word. I talked about this at the top of the show, and it needs reiteration. Too much repetition. It's a nice idea that they were going for three different perspectives, but you only really needed to see the rape scene from the two different perspectives, and it almost needed a little bit more contrast. It's a little too similar, but everything else, like to go as far back as they do with Matt Damon and Adam Driver in both of their sequences, all the way up to the point of the rape and the trial and everything. It's like there's 2.5 hours. There's way too much repetition in this movie.
Yeah,
I do not love the structure of it. So for me, it was when it was over, I definitely felt like this, despite the rape and the mistreatment of women, all of that, I just was like, okay, I now have something to talk about with Ronnie, but I've had a better 2.5 hours at the movies.
Yeah.
Go ahead and have the last word here.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so all in all, it's a C out of A through F for me. Maybe a B minus. The story is great. I mean, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
The movie drug because of the three different perspectives. They did not need to make the rape scene as long and drawn out and see it from two different perspectives like you did. I understand why I don't want to say importance of it to the story, but I guess you have to.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just one of those things where you're like, I don't want to see that. But it like you said, it's just too drawn out and they go back too far in each perspective. You could have even just had one overlaying perspective of what happened, and then maybe and do shorter the three different stories shorter.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, it needed another small pass through editing and going on, but what brought it back was the actual duel for me, and the symbolism of both of them, one losing and one almost losing. just to show that, he's not as innocent as he thinks he is.
Sure.
Is how I took it. He was spurting blood out of his leg. He could have died. He could have bled out, but he didn't. But it's one of those things where, like, you can take it like I took it as, like I said, he almost died, so he's not as innocent as he thinks he is. But he's too stupid to realize that at the end.
All right, what'd you think of the music?
I don't remember the music. I was too busy cringing.
Well, I assure you,
no, it was good. It was good.
I was gonna say, I assure you, there was music in this.
There was music. I mean, it's just it was period. It was period perfect, I guess you could say, or period right, even for music, through the movies. But when I think of music like that, man, I think of, like, for movies, movie soundtracks. One of my favorites is Lord of the Rings.
Howard Shore is fantastic.
Yeah, or even if you ever seen Last of the Mohicans with Daniel Day-Lewis, that soundtrack is incredible.
Well, if you want to hear any of those soundtracks, any of the Howard Shore, Lord of the Rings, the Braveheart soundtrack is fantastic. I actually used to own that.
Yeah,
that's some
makes
good
my
shit.
heart swell.
Absolutely. You should click the link in our description of this podcast for a free 30-day trial of the Amazon Music Unlimited service.
30 full days.
If you complete the sign-up process, you'll get free 30 days. You can download and stream all the music you want. Zillions and zillions of songs on Amazon. It's fantastic. Definitely give it a shot. And if you don't like it after 30 days, you can cancel it with no problem at all. There's no contracts. There's no problems. Most people keep it. Most people love it. And they enjoy them. Like, who doesn't want a soundtrack to their life? What if you're out there in the world and you feel like you need a show? Pull up your kilt and show people your ass. Wouldn't you like to have a nice soundtrack to that? So,
Amazon went, yeah, this is good. What did you say?
Okay, so somebody wrote in here. I'll put this on screen here. You had to give a good show before the blow off, otherwise there would be no meaning to the fight, the give and the take. And I agree with that. I think you're right.
Spike, yes, absolutely. Spike is actually a friend of mine.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's listening to our show tonight, but I agree with you on that as well.
All right, and with that, let's go ahead and talk about how little money this made.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money. Money, money, money.
Dollar, dollar. Dollar, dollar.
All righty.
Can I say how much I was not prepared for that?
You were not prepared for Here Comes the Money?
Scared the urine out of me.
Do you not listen to any Daniel?
Oh, absolutely. But I mean, I've not been on one recently that has Here Comes the Money.
Okay, we didn't do the money for the Green Knight.
No, we actually did not do the money.
Oh, okay. Well, this thing had $100 million budget. It's made so far, and this is now 2 weeks out. It came out the same weekend as Halloween Kills.
$10.
Yeah, it's just about $17.7 million. I mentioned this before.
Budget.
I mentioned this before, and boy, if you weren't ready for Here Comes the Money, let me tell you, you're not going to be ready for the fact that this thing bombed. Anywho,
cut back to Ronnie face palming.
So let's talk about this past weekend.
For some reason, I thought it said domestic 2021 wasteland.
That's also true. Actually, let's go back a week.
Woo!
All right, so on the weekend of its debut, the weekend of the October 15th through the 17th, again, Halloween Kills, which we talked about when we reviewed that movie. Yeah. Halloween Kills was the #1 movie of the weekend. The Last Duel came in at number 5 behind No Time to Die, which was in its second week, Venom, which was in its third week, and
Time to Suck.
And The Addams Family 2, which was PVOD and in theaters, and that was also in its third week. It overtook Shang-Chi, but Shang-Chi's been in the movie since the beginning of September. So
since the beginning of time, apparently, not right now.
So it grossed almost 5 million in its first weekend.
Ouch, man.
Yeah, not good. This past weekend, the October 20th through the 24th, so it's now 2 weekends in theaters. It dropped from 5, where it debuted, to number 7. Ron's Gone Wrong pushed it out of the 5th spot, and and pushed down Addams Family 2, which dropped from 4 to 6. And so
I expect that.
it had a 55.5.9% drop. No change in theaters, but no one's going to see this thing. And I'll tell you what the buzz on this has been from people who study box office. I know like box office is not your thing, but I like it. I'm wonky when it comes to box office studies.
Yeah, it's a great perspective on the show.
And that is
listen to it.
So the Last Duel obviously attracts like D&D nerds like ourselves, people who like medieval stuff, whatever. But it also, much like Cry Macho was a few weeks ago, meant for a skewing much older audience.
Mm-hmm.
It's meant for our parents' age. And they're now, in general, I shouldn't talk about my parents specifically because they'll go see anything at any time, pandemic or no pandemic. But the findings that are being reported is that most elder folks 50 and up are not going to the movies. And so young people are not seeing this, and the elder people who would normally go see this are not going to the movies. So this thing has made a fraction of its budget. And Disney, this is going to be a write down for Disney. This is going to, somewhere in a ledger out there, they're looking at all the red that the Fox purchase has produced for Disney.
Buddy, I'm telling you.
This thing's going to lose millions, and it's just going to be a write down for Disney at this point. They can, I think this will get some Oscar nominations. If Ben Affleck does not win Best Supporting Actor for the ridiculous performance he put on in this, I don't. There's something wrong. I don't know if he'll win. So usually it's like movies like Sad Piano, the movie, or black and white hoity-toity picture. Those are the ones that typically win things, not something like this. This might win some technical awards, and they'll get nominated for a bunch of other stuff. But I don't think it's going to win anything. I'll tell you who needs to. If anybody should get a nomination, it should be Jodie Comer. She's really fabulous.
Absolutely.
So I hope she at least gets a nomination. I would not be surprised if she actually won. Just because she's so great in this. She really does put on a phenomenal performance.
Matt Damon's good, but he doesn't give that best actors, or even best supporting actor vibe. No, he's good in everything he does. He's just he's not dialing it in, but it's just one of those, it's not a role that sticks out for him.
No. All right, so that's really it on the money. This thing's this weekend coming up as we're recording this on a Sunday night. And the big Ronnie's going to be back with us again next week, as a matter of fact, because this Friday we have a day and date streamer that's on exclusive to Paramount Plus, Paranormal Activity, Next of Kin. But in theaters, we've got Last Night in Soho, which Ronnie Adams and Robert Winfrey are going to review with me. How do you feel about that? You get to be on a show with Robert.
I've been on a show with Robert before.
I think we'll have fun. I think it'll be an interesting discussion. I'm literally looking forward to Last Night in Soho. But more to the point, I can't imagine this is going to last too much long. I mean, it has to be. I think Disney said that there's a 45-day exclusivity window before they can pull it out of theaters. But day 46 is going to come, and this will be out of theaters and like on Hulu. Like that.
The Last Night in Soho. Yeah.
No. The Last Duel.
The Last Duel. That's what I said. I can't believe. Oh my gosh. Yeah, this is like technically a Disney film.
Yep.
Not going on Disney Plus. That's for sure.
No. You're not gonna be able to like watch an episode of What If and then all right, let's see a movie about a rape now.
Right. It's like I was sitting there going, looking through all the movies on Disney Plus. I was like, where's Logan? Logan should be on. Oh,
So
yeah.
you're in the chat with us. You know that there's a lot of complaining that goes on about how there's no movies in the theaters for for people who want to watch an adult movie, and I don't mean like X-rated. I mean like something a little bit more serious than like
right.
Shang-Chi or Transformers or something. And when movies like this fail, it sort of throws kindling on the fire of that idea that either you get Sad Piano, the movie that's in there just to fill out the requisite to win a prize later on,
right?
Or you get Michael Bay, boom, and there's nothing in the middle.
You got suck it up. Go see Sad Piano.
Yeah. Yeah, this one,
or Sad Piano 2, Bad Piano.
This
is not a good movie for anyone to see.
Well, I was gonna say there's no motivation to keep making movies like this and putting them in theaters because pandemic or no pandemic, no one's gonna go see them. They see here's the thing.
I think
what's attracting people to the movies are event movies. Right. This is not an event movie. This is something you watch at home.
This is something I think also the content of this movie is going to hurt it quite a bit, even at home. People watching at home.
Yeah.
Whatever streaming service this comes to, Hulu or whatever, not many people are going to watch this because this is a hard subject for people to take in.
Sure.
I'm not going to watch it again. One, just because it was a slog to get through.
This doesn't have high rewatchability for you.
Oh, no.
All right.
No. Believe it or not.
All right, let's go ahead and do the critical review, and then we'll get out of here.
Are you ready? No! I said, are you ready?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
All right, the critical review is brought to you by Grammarly. Grammarly's AI-powered products help people communicate more effectively. Grammarly helps you write mistake-free on Gmail, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and nearly anywhere else you write on the web. Grammarly corrects hundreds of grammar, punctuation, and spelling mistakes while also catching contextual errors, improving your vocabulary, and suggesting style improvements. To download Grammarly today, go to getgrammarly.com/W2M network. That's getgrammarly.com/W2M network to download Grammarly for free. All righty. So the critics and the audience more or less like this movie the same, as you can see. The critics gave it a come in at 85. The audience score was 81. I actually thought the audience score would be lower, but again, about the same. The critics say The Last Duel's critique of systemic misogyny isn't as effective as it might have been. Don't you understand? This is not about a duel. It's about systemic misogyny, you misogynist Ronnie Adams.
Let's throw some keywords into a paragraph and start making people talk. That's all I heard.
But it remains a well-acted and thought-provoking drama infused with epic grandeur. The audience says, we came for platinum. If you don't mind its somewhat repetitive story structure, which I did, The Last Duel is an exciting, well-paced period drama that leaves you with plenty to think about. All right. We'll do a few.
Thank you for not using systemic and misogyny in that.
Kathia Woods of Cup of Soul. The Lady Reigns Supreme. It's not a helpful review.
What? How? What do you mean by this?
I mean, I'm sure there's more to it, but I always laugh when that's the sentence they pull out of the review. It's like, I mean, I guess in terms of maybe making you want to read what the hell she's talking about, but that by itself is not helpful.
I mean, you might as well just said pork and beans tomorrow for lunch, Batman symbol.
All righty. David Stratton of the Australian Top Critic disagrees with me. He says The Last Duel is a big screen experience, if there ever was one, and for the most part, a pretty impressive one.
So what we're saying is that this guy is an Australian perv. Yeah, I mean that. I'm sorry, this is what I got out of it. I mean, like, dude, no. This is not something you need to go, like, okay. I mean, I went to a movie to see it. movie theater to see it, but this is not something that I would recommend anybody watch in a theater. Just like you said, this is an at-home experience where you can be, you know, you don't have to actually look at another stranger in the eye and say, yeah, we just saw that together.
Dan Merle of Dan Merle Reviews, you self-employed loser. I did that for Rob. Pieces of The Last Duel seem like they'd make for one of the year's best movies, but they're a jumbled whole.
Yeah,
Thanks,
I agree
Dan.
with him on that.
Well, Jorge Ignacio Castillo from Planet S Magazine agrees with you. The unexpected MVP of The Last Duel is Ben Affleck. Yeah, I meant to mention this before. I'll say it now. I like the fact they didn't go with bizarre accents. Everyone just kind of Matt Damon and Ben Affleck just kind of used like.
I mean, like that's the other thing. I was expecting British accents or what a faux British accent, and then all of a sudden they're like, wait, they're in France, and they're using a really bad faux British accent. You
Right.
know, at least they didn't.
Everyone sounds like Peter Cushing.
Boston Yard,
Right.
Yeah.
I helped fix the car. Now I'm fucked.
Yeah. It's like, hey, get out of my yard. Leave my wife alone.
Yeah.
Kind of a deal.
I was glad they just went with normal accents.
Yeah.
Since, they weren't going to do French the whole time. And as I joke around with Robert, and I've actually said this to my kids too, because my kids have brought this up to me. They're like, you have to understand everybody outside of the U.S. has a British accent. British is the stand-in for every other ethnicity and their accents.
Absolutely.
Matt Conway of Battle Royale with Cheese, one of our favorites on here. The Last Duel reduces the concept's fruitful insights into didactic hand-holding.
What the frick did you just say? Some of those are words I understand.
Okay, well, I'm going to read this last one. I read this earlier to myself, and it made me chuckle, and I need to share it with you.
That
and then
last
we'll be
guy
done.
was just, I'm pretentious, and I want you to know it.
Yes, his farts don't smell.
No.
Mark Feeney of the Boston Globe, top critic. He gets paid for this, okay? This is his paid job. Got it?
Yes.
The Last Duel might work better as a silent film.
And that's it.
Yep.
That's all you got.
That's all he got.
I guarantee that man makes $200,000 a year.
All right, folks. That's
why? Because there's no justice in this world.
That is our review of The Last Duel. This was fun. I was glad we got to do this.
Absolutely.
So as I said, Ronnie will be back a week from Monday to review Last Night in Soho, which will be fun. This week, as this is recording tomorrow morning, myself and Chris Bailey and possibly Harry Broadhurst, possibly not, one never knows, we'll be reviewing Crown Jewel, the WWE event from Saudi Arabia. And then myself and Sean Comer will be doing another indie early 2000 classic On Trial. We'll be looking at Donnie Darko. We re-aired the Paranormal Activity Long Road to Ruins that we did, parts 1 and 2. Parts 1 dealt with Paranormal Activity 1 and 2. Part 2 was 3 and 4. And it was one that Sean had suggested back when we did it like 7 or 8 years ago, because Sean felt the need to scream and yell about Paranormal Activity. I think it was 3. That was the infamous, why does Toby have a copy of Final Cut Pro? Which always cracked me up. So when Sean gets a bee in his bonnet and feels the need to scream about something, those are some pretty entertaining shows. And he had suggested Johnny when we did Spun earlier in the summer, and we were talking just about like that treasure trove of early 2000s indie snob films, like Donnie Darko and Run Lola Run and Requiem for a Dream.
Juno.
Spun, Juno, yeah, all of those. Me and him both went back and forth about how, like, if you were a film snob back then, Donnie Darko was your shit. But if you truly examine the movie, there's a great number of problems with it that no one talks about, because if you want to be a cool film guy, you got to like Donnie Darko. Well, Sean and I are going to debate the merits of that facetious statement, and
who's defending?
Who is probably me.
Oh, Bubby. I'm sorry.
I can if I defended Catwoman, I can defend Donnie Darko.
In my mind, to keep my respect for you as a human being, you didn't do that.
So someone suggested to me once, I won't say who, but someone suggested that the next on trial I do with Sean, I should just let him talk, and then when he's done, say something like, if the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit, and then and then just like that's it, end the show. Do the Chewbacca defense.
Yes.
They don't even argue with him.
Nope.
I'm actually looking forward to Donnie Darko because I enjoy when Sean loses his shit and just starts screaming.
What is this? This is the bowl of chili you'll be eating when he's arguing this.
So look for that. That's tomorrow night. Jesse's got a whole bunch of unspoken issues dropping this week. It's one long Rise of the Midnight Suns that he cut into bite-sized episodes for some strange reason.
Jesse, let Jesse do what Jesse do.
Speaking of strange movies, myself, David Wright, presumably Jeff Slabata from the MCU's Bleeding Edge, and Robert Winfrey will be reviewing the 2021 Dune. David Wright already did the 1984 Dune last week. We'll be reviewing the new Dune Part 1 from Denis Villeneuve. Myself, Jesse Starcher, and Robert Cooper will be reviewing our final album for the month of October, having to do with all things Halloween. We are reviewing the new Halloween album, Halloween self-titled. Came out earlier this year. Myself and Gavin Napier will be reviewing Ted Lasso Season 2. And on Friday, we've got 2 shows for you. Myself and Alexis Hano will be doing a triple feature for Scooby-Doo Meets Courage the Cowardly Dog, Straight Outta Nowhere, Muppets Haunted Mansion, and My Little Pony, A New Generation, Rah, Rah, We're an Angry Mob. And then Jason Teasley won't leave me alone. He likes to say that I force him to do things, but he in fact cries and bitches and moans when so your friend Spike is not a fan of Donnie Darko, apparently. Anyway.
Nobody is.
So yeah, Jason Teasley won't leave me alone. And when I told him we didn't have time to do You, he threw a giant 3-month-long tantrum. So
when he said
the show You, that was, I don't know where it was originally, but now it's on Netflix.
I don't know.
Yeah, I tried to cut that from the schedule because I didn't have time to do 3 seasons worth of television, and he threw a giant man tantrum. So we will be doing the first season of You because I am nothing if not accommodating.
True.
Saturday, the day before Halloween, Jesse and Alexis will be presenting their Tripped Up Trivia, horror movies and such.
I would totally wipe the board with that.
Well, you should have been on the show then.
Yeah, well, I wasn't invited.
All right. And then finally, we are celebrating Halloween, October 31st, with a whole slew of shows, old and new and blue. Jesse and Alexis, I feel like I've said that a lot now, are reviewing Power Rangers on A Nightmare on Elm Street. A couple of years ago, myself and Jesse reviewed the new Trick or Treat album, Reanimated, which is a covers album. So we're gonna re-air that on the 31st. The last part, I think, of the Rise of the Midnight Suns airs that day, and then I think another Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, another Unspoken Issues is either being recorded or airing. I'm not entirely sure, Jesse. What are you doing to me? But it says here Spawn number 9 by Neil Gaiman. And then we're into Eternal stuff because Chris Bailey. All right, that's it. What do you got going on in your world?
My friend, I am a part, I have a channel called Misfits and Miscreants over on twitch.tv/Misfits and Miscreants. We have a bi-weekly actual play Dungeons and Dragons stream where I'm leading 7 adventurers, soon to be 7 adventurers through the Arctic wasteland of 10 Towns and Icewind Dale. We're playing Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frost Maiden. It is a lot of fun. Please check us out. I have been very bad about streaming video games lately on this because on our off days I've stream video games, but I'm trying to work up to where we get different content than that, and then just use the video games as a filler. So right now I'm looking at different board games that I'm purchasing and playing, and so we can stream, some board game content. I've been working on some Magic the Gathering content, and also I'm working on getting another stream going, hopefully soon, with some people that you saw last time in our Curse of Strahd stream. We have 2 different teams that stream at any time. I also want to get some people going in some one-shots online. We have delayed our Radulich and Broadcasting D&D game stream by a little bit. We'll hopefully get to be able to do that soon. But we've delayed that just for now due to scheduling and things like that. But I'm working on a full schedule of trying to get some stuff going for us, at least, Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights.
How old are the kids that play? When you teach kids to play D&D, what's the minimum age?
Well, I have two different things going on. I teach, we teach new and old. The kids that I teach are anywhere from 10 in age up to 13.
Okay, so it's a little old for Jonas just yet. He needs to age
Not
a couple
quite.
of years.
How old is Jonas now? He's 6, 7?
7. He's 7. He'll be 8 in April.
My youngest was 8.
Okay.
So there are these cute little books that teach you it's like the player's hand guide, or player's handbook.
I think I told you when we went to WasabiCon, his favorite part of the day was when we went into the gaming room.
Yes.
And we were playing, and we tried playing this Street Fighter card game, and I went Donald at the window. I could not figure out how to work this stupid game. It's way too complicated. I don't know how y'all play Magic and shit like that, because I couldn't figure out this card game.
Basically,
so we played Candyland, and it was the best part of his day.
Oh man, Candyland's amazing. Mm-hmm. Magic is getting easier for me. It's a little, it's a little bit of a slow burn, especially when you play against people who've been playing for 20 years.
Sure.
But you've got board games like this, it's called Horrified.
Mm-hmm.
It's all the Universal monsters, and there's different things like that. There's another board game that's based off an RPG called Kids on Bikes. Yeah. It's a blast. I love it. It's so good.
He is definitely showing a deep interest in tabletop games. I think he would actually enjoy role playing.
Imagination, man.
You and I will have to talk about maybe getting me and Jonas and possibly Lily. I don't know if she'd be up for it in a role playing game.
Absolutely, I would be more than happy to. Cool. Maybe kids on bikes might be a little bit of a. We'll start with that and move into other stuff, maybe something like that. But anyway, I digress. But we've got all kinds of stuff coming at you that I have planned that I want to put into fruition soon. So stick with us. We may or may not have a stream this Saturday. It's our time to stream, but it is Halloween. It's a day before Halloween. So depending on some people's schedules and everything, the way things go down, we may have to delay a little bit, but I'll get something going for you, a little, something else going for you. But I like to see the kids trick or treat myself. I like to hand out candy, at the end of my driveway, and then go see a haunted house after that goes down. So Halloween is a little bit of a special time for me as well. I love it. So we may or may not have a stream the 30th, this Saturday. So, but other than that, we got some cool stuff coming. So stick with us. Switch over to Misfits and Miscreants. I'm actually hosting W2M right now. Give us a follow, say something to us, and we've got some cool stuff going on. Also, we have a link tree in there that leads to our Facebook. No, not Facebook. It leads to our Instagram, our TikTok, and a few other things. And most importantly, we do have a Patreon going on right now. So Misfits and Miscreants, this is the first time I've actually announced our Patreon. So we have a Patreon. We have a few different tiers. A couple of them have some really cool stuff. We'll give you a couple shout outs. But one of them actually allows you to help to sit with me and design an NPC to use in the game and in the future games on the stream. So you can design your own NPC, your own non-player character. We have
also, if you're a girl on TikTok and you're into D&D, send your TikToks to Ronnie Adams like I do.
Yes, please do. Anyway, it's we got some cool stuff on our Patreon. Check it out. And if you have an extra $5, just maybe send it our way. You'll get some cool You'll get some cool content that maybe nobody else has seen yet. So maybe some different, like, Call of Cthulhu and stuff like that. So hook us up and, or not hook us up, but look us up and, and then I'll quit rambling and stop there.
All right. Yep. If you found the show and you're not subscribed to any one of our social medias, please do. We're W2M is on Facebook. It's on Twitter. It's on Instagram. I personally have all of those things. Plus, my subcategory of W2M Radulich and Broadcasting Network also has all its own social media. Especially if you've enjoyed the live stream, subscribe and like our videos on YouTube. Subscribe on Twitch so that you get notifications. We live stream just about every night for the most part. If it's not me, it's the Life is Like a Game Show guys, or the soccer guys, or the video game guys. This past weekend, just real quick, I met a new friend through Chris Bailey. He hooked me up with Daniel Lasby, and we did some boxing commentary. I was very excited about that because Robert Winfrey's not always available or wants to. So I was happy to have Dan step in and do the Shakur Stevenson fight. So that's up now, and hopefully we'll get to do more in the future. All right, we are now 26 minutes over what I wanted to be.
Wow, sorry. Dang.
Yeah, 20 minutes of plugs minimum every show.
Most of that's my rambling, and I apologize.
No, you're fine, dude. I'm just as bad. Ladies and gentlemen, that's our review of The Last Duel, starring the boys from Good Will Hunting. For Ronnie Adams, I'm Mark Radulich. Be well, be safe, and behave.